nothing interferes with their ability to really prioritize their marriage, their family, right? And because we know that kind of goes with gratitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it goes to making sure you understand what's important, who's important. Our priorities should be like how we take care of ourselves and our spouse, our kids. I mean, those are the people that are most important. There are people, successful and millionaires and even billionaires, that don't practice some of these things and yet are still rich, and that will be so. But I would argue that these people, when you practice good daily habits, healthy daily habits, you're actually more fulfilled. If you become a billionaire, but your spouse despises you, your
Mm-hmm.
kids have disowned you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what good is that?
And you have no peace in your life.
Yeah. So definitely all to say is you can't have both. You can thrive in tandem with your spouse and with business and your personal life. You can achieve, but yet be able to prioritize the things that matter most, your own health as well as the health of your relationship. Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Hey, Thriving in Tandem family, and welcome back.
Hi, guys.
Today, we are going to talk about the daily habits of the rich and famous. Remember when there's that show, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is going to be similar, but we're not going to talk about how much money they have because of
And
this.
going into their homes.
It's pretty obvious that they do have a lot of money because they are rich and famous. But really digging into the habits. And we've talked a lot about that. And obviously, when it comes to the subject of work-life balance, part of it is having, making sure you take care of yourself before you're trying to take care of others and take care of business and all that. And so certainly the folks that we're going to talk about today have done that at the highest level. And before you start saying, oh, well, they can do those things because they've got all this money and all this time, free time, I would push back, because we know a lot of successful people and a lot of people with a lot of money that still have really lousy habits, and it really costs them their health, their mental health too, as well as their relationships, bottom line, right? And this is the big piece of our show, is about making sure you're prioritizing your relationships as you're building your business. And so these folks have done it as well in different ways. They may not have a business. Some of them are athletes. Some of them are CEOs. Some of them do have a business. But regardless, they're succeeding at the highest level, but they also know that their habits of how they take care of themselves and their relationships around them is a high priority for their fulfillment, their really ultimate success.
And you might be surprised because they're pretty highly structured.
So let's look at this. Now, I don't think it's going to be a surprise. If you paid attention to these people at all, you probably heard some bits and pieces about how they take care of themselves, right? Especially with professional athletes like LeBron James and Tom Brady.
But I'm just saying, oh, sorry, honey. Some people have a hard time with structure, or they don't want to be structured.
Yeah,
it's intentional.
So if you look at these high-performing athletes, obviously we know they have to have they lead a highly structured life. Practice, of course, workouts, and of course how they eat, and of course sleeping and all that. And then you move into the business side of things when you look at Tim Cook, who's the CEO of Apple, Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, and then you got Tony Robbins, who's, well, everybody, I think everybody knows Tony Robbins, right? So they all have these daily habits and disciplines so that they can maintain peak performance, right? And I know, honey, you've got one of your favorites on this list, and then I think so do I. So we'll dig more into them, I think, a little bit. But let's highlight a couple people here as we start off the bat and kind of see what some of their daily habits are. So let's start with LeBron James, right? Going to be a Hall of Fame basketball player once he retires. One of his non-negotiables is make sure he gets 8 to 10 hours a night, 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Big on make sure he's focused on his mobility and stretching. Of course, a strict nutrition plan. He's known for cryotherapy and ice baths. Now, that's a big thing these days, ice baths. For the mind, reads regularly, focuses on pre-game visualizations. And I think that's something I probably need to pick up on, visualization. I hear that every once in a while. And you hear that in sports, and you don't hear as much in business, but I do hear business people talk about that too. And it's especially like for me, like I like to golf, even though I haven't golfed in a long time. But if you ever watch a professional golfer, their pre-shot routine, before every shot, they visualize. And, as as if you've heard about visualization at any level, you know that what they talk about is visualization sets you up for success because whatever you're visualizing in your mind doesn't differentiate between what you're just dreaming and thinking about versus reality. And so that's why, especially when you look at golfers and even like LeBron James, you'll see them visualize even the free throw shot, right? Golfers, they'll visualize before they hit a shot or before they hit a putt. They visualize, especially on the green, they visualize break, the speed and the break of the ball. They really imagine that. And so, and the mind picks up on that. That's actually, I saw a study once about people that visualize hitting the ball versus people that practice hitting the ball daily for like 2, 3 weeks or whatever, something like that. They came back and the people that only visualize and they didn't practice actually hitting the ball, they actually perform better than the ones that actually hit the ball.
Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
about that. And then when you visualize, you need to like try and use as many senses as you can. Like, what does it smell like when you're there? Imagine like if you're at the beach and you can feel the ocean breeze against your scent, your skin, and different things like that. So it makes it feel more real to you.
Mhm. Yeah, create as much reality into that
Taste
visualization
the
as
salt in
possible.
the air.
Yeah. So visualization. So for LeBron, going back to LeBron James, he speaks openly about gratitude, having just a grateful heart. I think that's huge, especially like in business, right, where you can focus so much on the negative of what didn't go right, and when you're constantly focused on those things, things start to feel become a grind.
Well, and your mind gravitates towards that. Whether
Mhm.
it's positive or negative, you'll look for it.
Yeah, and so I think speaking openly of being intentional about gratitude, and now I mean, I had a gratitude journal someone recommended once, and so doing daily journaling and putting down gratitude, and of course we do that daily in our morning prayer time, right? So somehow, some way, I think practicing gratitude is very important because you can forget about how many good things are going on because we're so focused, especially as high achievers, we're so critical about ourselves and our performance. And it's so easy to pick out what's going wrong and you forget the laundry list of things that are going well. And so I think gratitude's huge.
And I try and do it before I go to bed, while I'm in bed before I fall asleep, because I thought I want that to be on my mind while I'm sleeping, all the
Mhm.
good things that's happened through my day.
And LeBron's also is very open about prioritizing his family and understanding his identity is beyond basketball. So again, going back to it's so easy to get caught our identity gets tied up into our business. And that's why it's so hard to pull away from working because we feel, I mean, I think that's where we get probably the most accolades is in our business because in our personal life, people don't, typically are concerned or praise you because you've got a great healthy routine or you've got a great relationships. I mean, every once in a while, people will make that comment to us, but by and large, people are more focused about your professional accomplishments or, they get enamored. Like if we talk about our own real estate and stuff like that, right? They're enamored and they affirm you on the things that you're doing, not about who you are or your relationship. So, huge for LeBron to understand that his identity goes beyond basketball. So, anyways, that's LeBron. So, I don't know what's other takeaways you have from that, honey.
No, I just think it's great that his identity is not so he's able to realize his identity is not so wrapped up into what he does. It's not who he is. And like you were saying, a lot of times we get very confused with that as entrepreneurs because we allow our business to take over our identity
Yeah.
and our life.
So let's go to your favorite, honey. Sarah Blakely was the favorite on the list,
Mhm.
and why could you, I guess, relate to her the best?
She's intentional about being playful. And I think for me, one of the many things is that when you're in a playful mode, you're having fun, your mind's not worried about anything, and you're just kind of like a child. It brings back childhood memories. When you're laughing as hard as you can laugh and your tummy hurts and you're just enjoying yourself. You're not performing or thinking about work.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
it's good to have that downtime from just work, 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 and that playfulness is help. It just re-energizes you.
it does that and rest. It's a kind of a resting for me. And I get a lot of creative ideas when I'm not thinking about,
Mm.
I didn't want a solution for this. Seems like then they don't come as easier. But if I'm like on the other side of my mind, brain having fun, kind of just letting go, then things just tend to pop into my mind.
So what else?
She's another journaler. which I like to journal. I call it, she calls it something different, but I call it the redo. So, like, she'll look at things that maybe didn't go the way she wanted, and she will visualize it in her
Reframe.
mind. Reframe, thank you. She will reframe it in her mind. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so great. And I always thought if I had kids, I would want to do that with the kids. Like if something didn't work out, like, well, let's talk about how could we have done that differently? Because I think when you talk about that and you look for things, how you could do it differently, it's easier to see the next time it comes around.
Yeah, and we are just on a podcast just this morning, and we talked about the failures, like in real estate, right, that we've had, and it's like, hey, it's just an expensive. It's just another piece of education. It's one of those things you don't forget when you fail at something. You don't forget that stuff, and then we basically reframed it. We didn't stop us from moving forward with continuing to invest in real estate. We just took it as a learning lesson.
Mhm.
It's an expensive learning lesson, but like I said, you don't forget. And then therefore, what happens is you remember those mistakes. You remember, I guess, the warning signs and some of the things that we overlooked because we're too enamored, or I'd say I was too enamored with the returns that you can get versus what the risks were because I didn't identify the risks or really didn't understand the reality of the risks just because sometimes when you're especially when you're investing, right? Or even in business, when you see the potential of something, especially when it comes to bringing in money, you downplay the risk because you don't want to address those things because you're very focused, hey, it's going to make a lot of money, right? And because of that, when you downplay the risk, then you don't have a plan to mitigate it,
Mhm.
right? So I think reframing the failure is like, okay, took a step back, certainly didn't work out the way we want, but what can we learn and how do we apply it to next time? And then, as you know, we now know how to assess a potential investment or a potential opportunity. And we do look at the reality of the risk and potential possible possibilities of failures and what do you do to mitigate that and go through a process before we just jump onto an opportunity.
And then I want to say too, when we reframe, I try and go back and think, what were the warning signs that were there and I just didn't see or I didn't want to recognize or yeah, so I can learn from that as well.
So anything else about Sarah?
She's an emotion girl like me. I'm learning my body likes to be in motion, and that doesn't mean I'm hyper, I gotta be doing something every minute. You know what? I'm not someone that can sit all day long. I know you're better at that than I am, but I have to get up every so often and start moving, and I find that my body really appreciates that.
And she's also very intentional about family dinners. It's a big deal.
Oh, yeah, you know what she does? She goes around the table every night and she asks her kids, "What is one thing that you failed at today?" I thought that's a fabulous idea because it gets you into the mindset it's okay to fail and
Makes it
to
makes it normal, I guess.
right, and to get out there and try because we're gonna talk about it at dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. That's a good one. Yeah, I think because especially like for me growing up, it was more about expectation. It was like perfection, right? And so I think once I think when failure is not talked about as a potential and it's not okay because you
Mhm,
call out the failure, right? Like for me growing up and for most households, I think we call out the failure. Um, and it's almost like shameful. So
mhm,
then it really gets you kind of stressed, and I think you're motivated out of fear and fear of failure than it is about just want to do the best job possible. And I think that when you have kind of the fear of failure mentality, then you could tend to make big mistakes,
mhm.
or just not move forward, swiftly enough. So I think kind of normalizing that, hey, try. If you fail, that's okay. Let's talk about it. Right.
'Cause I know, like, in our household, we didn't talk about it. Like, if we failed at something, we would just wanna keep it in secret and hope
Mm-hmm.
nobody knew about it, and it
Mm-hmm.
would be, like, a shameful something we'd feel, embarrassed about as opposed to putting it out in the open and being okay to fail, and you know what? Somebody else might have an idea on how to make it successful
Yeah.
and
So
taking the fear out of it.
yeah. And so for me, I kind of align myself the most with Tim Cook. Now, as you'll say, as we wrap this up later, after I talk about Tim, we'll talk about the commonalities between all of these because I don't know if I wrote the list of the people we're looking at. There was LeBron James. I did. Yeah,
Yes.
I did. Never mind. Don't need to repeat myself. But anyways, I align myself a little bit more with Tim Cook. He's probably I don't know, but he seems like he's an introvert like me. But he does talk about his 5 a.m. His morning routine, his 5 a.m. wake up time, daily gym routine. He has a structured schedule, discipline, and as you know, honey,
Mhm.
I'm pretty structured. And he reviews his customer emails early on. So after his kind of morning personal routine, then he checks emails first, and that's kind of that's kind of what I do. I do my personal, do my, quiet time, read the Bible, prayer time, take the dog for a walk, get my smoothie, and then I check emails first thing, and then I get my work done and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing I do on Mondays, I'm not sure if Tim does this or not, but one of the things on my email routine on Monday mornings, I don't check email. So I actually, because for me, Mondays is my kind of on the business day, which means I take care of all the things, priority times, things that are on the business, not just administration stuff, but more vision casting, planning, strategy, content development. To write the weekly emails that go out. Yes, I do. If you're on my email list, I do write the emails every week, and so I kind of do kind of the big picture stuff on Mondays. And so what I don't want to be interrupted by emails first thing in the morning on a Mondays, because once you read one email, you can't help but read the second and third, and
It's
then
like a chip,
you got to respond, and then you got to think about things, and yeah, and
a bag of chips. You can't just have one
yeah, and
chip out of the
so I
bag.
wait for closer to lunchtime to start answering emails, and so on Mondays, um, and then yeah, he values privacy, simplicity, and focused living. I definitely like to keep things simple. I do not like complex.
No, but you like to take the complicated things and make them
I
simple.
do. That's kind of my secret sauce, so to speak, or that's my
Yeah, your secret
secret
sauce.
power. Because I do know, yeah, just because in any type of organization, the more complex things, the more likely things are going to go wrong.
We had one client, I kid you not, that just wanted to make everything complicated for his employees.
Yeah, it was just amazing. I was like, why do you do this? Yeah, and so I was even on the call yesterday with a client, and one of the team members, he was talking about this structure, this workflow for something, and I'm sitting there going, "What in the world are you doing? This is way more complicated than it needs to be."
And probably the rest of the people have no idea what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
he's just going on and on around me. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is make my head spin." So yeah, definitely like simplicity, not just in how I work and processes and stuff, but yeah, even how I live and how we live. Just keep things as simple as possible. Mm, and definitely, Tim looks like he protects quiet time in the morning.
Mm,
And yeah, I've learned. I don't know if I started this. This is for me. I think this has been a more relatively recent phenomenon. I'd say last 6, 7 years. I think I've been doing this, like on my current routine. Maybe longer. But definitely have, yeah, probably a little longer, maybe 8, 9 years. But I think it's evolved too over those years. But definitely protect that quiet time. We've talked about before how you start the day sets the tone, and there's a lot of you know physiological and biological and health research around this about the importance of starting a day in peace or having that quiet time and just not rushing in today, starting checking texts and emails and kind of going into work mode right away, but really having that kind of quiet time in the morning. And quiet doesn't mean just not doing anything. It's like I said, whether it's a meditation, whether it's reading, or for me, reading the Bible, prayer time, things that are
journaling,
calming and kind of fills you up.
meditating.
Yeah, kind of fills you up, not just stresses you out. And so, yeah, for me, I think closely with Tim. So that's Tim Cook. What are the common traits between um, all these? So let's kind of summarize. We didn't go through all six of the rich and famous that we had mentioned off in the beginning, but as we looked at all those, as we did the research on all these, there is a definite pattern between all of them. Even though the things that they actually do might be different, but there's still a pattern and a principle that they
Mhm.
follow. So first one is how they start the day. They win the first hour is kind of a popular quote. They win the first hour. And so that is hugely important. Movement daily, even on a rest day, like even for athletes, right? Even on a potential rest day, there's still some kind of movement,
Mhm.
stretching, like LeBron stretches and that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh, stretching is so good for your body.
Yeah.
It's like, and it feels good because you know what? The older you get, they say the less mobility you are. And so you want to make sure everything's flexible and moving and
Yeah.
lubricated.
I stretch every night, every evening, and it's amazing how tight my muscles are. I was like, oh my gosh. And so as you get older, it seems like there's even more, and especially for you as you get older, and then you try to play like turkey bowl. Like, I don't know how many of you have played turkey bowl, or at least the guys, right? Every Thanksgiving, you go out and play football with the guys before Thanksgiving dinner. And then inevitably somebody gets hurt, right? Because they think they're still 18, and of course they don't stretch, they don't do anything. They haven't done this in at least a year, right?
Years.
Since the last year's previous year's turkey bowl, and then they're not stretching. They just go out and play, and they pull a hammy.
That reminds me of your friend that did a cartwheel fundraiser.
Yeah, and he pulled his rib or something like that. I was like, oh, this. Why are you doing this? And this
He was doing a cartwheel with his kids.
I was on a mastermind call a while back, and every call we do a quick catch up, like what's going on, what's a win, and all that stuff. So this guy starts out by saying, "Yeah, he played turkey bowl," and I'm like, "Oh, you pulled a hammy." All I did was like in the chat, "Oh, you pulled a hammy." He's like, "Well, basically, yes." I think he did something. I forgot exactly what he did, but essentially knows that. So yeah, so movement, daily movement. You can, especially if you have more of a desk type business or desk job, like we do, definitely got to be very intentional about that. And then there's the intentional recovery for every one of these high performers. Sleep is non-negotiable. They want to
Mhm.
make sure they get at least that 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And because your body, your mind, body, soul, and spirit are energizing, are re-energizing during that sleep. So it's so important to get good sleep. And for any of you that have gone from having problems sleeping to then all of a sudden, maybe it's through surgery or through it's like the CPAP or whatever, to all of a sudden getting a good night's sleep. I mean, you see a world, they see a world of difference
Mhm.
between their attitude, their emotions, the clarity of thought, everything, and the way just with the overall performance. And so sleep is definitely
And they're easier to be around too.
usually. And then there's the mental rehearsal or journaling. Sarah Blakely does the journaling, and or LeBron with the visualization, right? So that that just one, I think helps clear your mind, helps focus the mind, and I think that clarity will reduce chaos.
Mm.
So when you're intentionally doing these things all the time, right, it just constantly reframing your mind to have greater clarity and focus.
Especially if your mind's, like, really focused on something, like, for me, it's does me well to sit down and journal so I can get it out of my mind, so I can get into a different place mentally and, move forward.
Yeah. Number 5 is gratitude and some kind of practice to kind of ground yourself, right? Again, like LeBron's understanding his identity is beyond basketball. So for you, your identity is beyond your business. It's
Mhm.
beyond even your volunteer work or what boards you're on or what activity and what things that you're doing, right?
Like, when was the last time you thanked the waitstaff? Or you're at the car wash, someone washes your car, or your spouse or your children? Thank you goes a long ways.
And yeah, because again, and thanking, being gratitude of what you have and what you have accomplished as opposed to
Mhm.
focusing on the negative, right?
All I have to say, we are so thankful for you guys, for our listeners.
Or viewers.
Yes, and
Me too.
viewers as well.
And then the sixth one and the last one, family boundaries. Success is integrated in all these practices, and they definitely value the relationships and want to make sure that nothing interferes with their ability to really prioritize their marriage, their family, right? And because we know that kind of goes with gratitude, right?
Mhm.
Because it goes to making sure you understand what's important, who's important, and I think that ties into identity too, right? Because I too many times our identity is tied in what we do, so which means where's our focus? It's on our business, it's on our other things, as opposed to understanding that our priorities should be like how we take care of ourselves and our spouse, our kids. I mean, those are the people that are most important.
And the family and the kids, the spouse, they're all great gratitude, thankful that when you make them a priority, that makes us feel special.
I hope this helps. That you can see that even people that have achieved at the highest level, they didn't start these practices now when they were
Mhm.
successful. They were doing this all the way up, right? And that really fuels them. And so you can make an argument, right, that there are people successful and millionaires and even billionaires that don't practice some of these things and yet are still rich, and that will be so. But I would argue that these people, when you practice good daily habits, healthy daily habits, you're actually more fulfilled because you're not only achieving professionally, but you're also achieving personally and then relationally. And that's when you really feel good, right? Because if you become a billionaire, but your spouse despises you, your
Mhm.
kids have disowned you, right?
Mhm.
I mean, what good is that?
And you have no peace in your life.
Yeah. So definitely all to say is you can't have both. You can thrive in tandem with your spouse and with business and your personal life. You can achieve but yet be able to prioritize the things that matter most, your own health as well as the health of your relationships. So go ahead and share this with another married entrepreneur needs to hear this. And until next week, God bless. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.